they were
Sausage
present.
fingers.
Well, these eyewitnesses from Germany as young girls were present when they were taken to Buckingham Palace into the sub-basement areas, and they were present when they saw again these 9 circle rituals with Philip, Charles, Andrew, and a whole family and others involved, Mountbatten, people like that.
It's like even to look at that family, you just know they're not like you or I. They don't even look the same species, really, to be fair. I don't know whether that's due to many years of interbreeding or what, but like they're just so detached from humanity. And it's clear in the way that their disregard and for children especially.
Yeah, power will do that to people, but you're right. There's these so-called like different bloodlines. Russell Nelson in the Mormon Church, why did he live to 101? Well, according to April Dutson and these other people, other Mormons, it wasn't just adrenochrome, but they do, rituals that they believe extend life. It's parasitic on the energy of children. And, who knows that, the depravities, the sky's the limit on this stuff, right?
Well, I suppose to the average person, it's hard just to imagine being like in that mindset or in that world. I mean, how do you get so depraved that that's your choice of thing? It's just absolutely insane. I don't know, like within these groups, it's like they all compromise each other so that they're all sort of. But like, Jesus Christ, I mean, where's your humanity here?
Well, that's the thing, and the problem was people don't want to believe it. They call it the will to disbelieve. That's the greatest protection these criminals have, right? And the fact that legally they're above their set of laws, but under international law and the law of nature, we have every right to, bring these people down, because there's that famous quote Cromwell used all the time in the execution of King Charles II, the First, when he said, "Be you ever so high, you are not above the law. That is God's law, the law of morality, and not statute law, but the common law." And that's the basis on which we prosecute and brought these people down. And you guys know about the the 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐜𝐫𝐢𝐻 babies that were found, the 800 corpses in that thing in 𝐬𝐮, Ireland. Well,
yeah.
Cardinal Sean Brady is the one who covered all that up, and he was one of the ones we bounced out, right? Forced into resignation. Now, of course, he's living, I don't even know if he's still alive, but he's living on a pension somewhere. And people says, well, how can you ever stop these people? Well, you can. The Church of Rome is very vulnerable. And we proved that. The thing that forced out this apology in Canada in 2008 is it was 2 weeks after we had just occupied the main Catholic cathedrals in Toronto and Vancouver. And, that shook them up. That hit them off guard, and because it's striking at their public image and their money in the collection plate. And we found that too. I had a great experience in Dublin.
You also had attempts in your life over the head of this as well. So it's not.
Oh yeah.
It's not like they're just shrinking into the background.
No, that's true. But they have a lot more to lose than I do, right? So they kill me.
That's very
the
true.
Truth is out there, right? And they're more vulnerable. That's the point. Sun Tzu in The Art of War always reminds us that your enemy, a bigger adversary, is more vulnerable than you. Therefore, they're easier to provoke. They're more afraid than you are, even though they've got all this camouflage they can hide that behind. And but I remember one morning in I think it was 2010, a woman in the north end of Dublin who was staying with, Mary Kelly. She was an old woman in her 70s, and she went into Pro Cathedral, and there was only about 30 people there in a church of 500 or something. And she got up and began to read the Catholic policy on crimen solicitatis, which I mentioned before, orders everyone to cover up child rape. And she said, your children are at stake. Your children are at risk by coming into this church. The priest tried to grab her. She turns around and cold cocks the priest. knocks him cold right on the pulpit, right? And then walks out. And the police didn't do anything because they all knew her, right? They'd grown up there and everything. So, I mean, that's what I mean. Like they're like a straight line in a joke. They're just, it's very easy to disrupt these people. And that's why we, in Canada, Native groups have gone and just taken over the Catholic churches in their territories, just ordered the priest out, taken over the church, start operating it as a community center.
Why do you think so many of these groups have got so much more arrogant though in just doing things out in the open?
Which groups?
Like the Vatican, like the deep state, just all these nefarious groups. I mean, they're quite happy to tell you, what they're doing,
Oh, because that's bluff. You see that it's like as their whole tower begins to crumble, which it is, they have to bluff all the more that they're really all powerful. Perfect example of that. That BS about papal infallibility. They have a rule that when the Pope is on the throne, he's infallible, right? Cannot make an error. That came in right after Garibaldi, who was kind of like the Italian George Washington. He united the country in the 1870s. He had just deposed the papal states. The Pope had just lost all power. And so he responds to me saying, oh yeah, I'm infallible. First Vatican Council announces infallibility. They didn't even have a majority of cardinals in favor of it. He just announces it. And everyone all faithfully believes this now. It's garbage. It was because he was losing power, so he had to bluff. And that's what's going on now. They're bluffing. Their system is in real crisis. And the fact that the head of NATO is indicted now for child rape and murder, that has huge repercussions because they're rattling sabers with Russia. I mean, this is going to have a real impact, like the last one did with Ratzinger. And they just they're always trying to convince people that they're all powerful, and it's not true, right?